Hello and welcome to the Card Fellas podcast. We are back. Matt and I have both been traveling quite a bit over the last few weeks, so I know the amount of shows coming out has dropped a little bit over the last few weeks, but I think we're starting to kind of clean those things up. We're going to be back home for a while. We got a 4th of July trip coming up, but I would expect to see some more shows coming up, and we got the Stanley Cup playoffs going on right now.
We do. Yeah, absolutely. It's hockey season wrapping up, if you will. And so, yeah, I think the two teams, I'd have to go back and listen to some of the podcasts previous when we did hockey. We predicted, I think we predicted the Lightning and Avalanche. Both of us did.
May have. I've taken the Avalanche from the start. So I know you might be a Lightning guy, but I've taken the Avalanche from the start, and tonight looked like they were going to run away with it, and the Lightning made it interesting, and Avalanche ended up winning in overtime. So it's going to be a fun series. The whole playoffs have been great, as they usually are, but I think this is going to be a fantastic series.
100%. And for our podcast listeners, we have a lot of them. Thank you for always downloading the latest podcasts. We're getting more and more listeners, so we appreciate that. We record these where we kind of take deep dives into sets. We are doing this live Wednesday nights, 10:30 Central Time on our YouTube channel, so you can find that there. So that's why we're talking about tonight if you're listening to us on a podcast. So every Wednesday we try and be live at 10:30 Central Time, and we go to the deep dive of a set. We kind of bounce from sport to sport to sport, and tonight, we thought hockey was a good opportunity to chat about that sport and a set that is actually really cool after you dive into it, because it is the end of hockey season. We have the Stanley Cup final. But tonight, we're talking about 1971, 1972 O-Pee-Chee Hockey. And man, oh man, when you start looking at some of these cards and you start looking at what this set really represented and you do research on it, Chris, this was like the must-have card or set if you lived in Canada during the 70s. Like, this was the set that a lot of people growing up in the 70s in Canada loved, and they still love it to these days. And after doing some research and looking at these cards, I see why.
Right. Yeah, they're very 1970s. They are very cool. O-Pee-Chee is kind of the Canadian version of Topps, and for the most part, the cards are really, really similar to what the Topps look like. These cards actually, I believe, are identical on the front. The backs are a little bit different, but they are identical to the Topps from the front. This was kind of an interesting time in hockey in that there were some legends retiring.
Yes.
The Canadiens were kind of still in the midst of their big string of championships. The year before the 71-72 season, so the 70-71 season, the Canadiens won the Cup. They had a young goaltender named Ken Dryden, who had only played in a handful of games the year before, and came in after an injury to the Canadiens goaltender. Ended up winning the Cup, won the Conn Smythe as the playoff MVP, and from there ended up putting together a pretty darn good career there in Montreal. So his rookie card is in here, even though he was in the league the year before, just played a handful of games. But I got to imagine as a kid in Montreal opening a pack of these things, which they were 10 cents at the time. That was the card that you were probably looking for.
Absolutely.
But there was another big rookie in this set as well. So,
yes, you're right. The Montreal. If you were in Montreal, you were buying these sets. Let's describe the cards here for people listening to on the podcast. And I mention this every once in a while on the show. This is one of those cards that I do recommend you go and Google. 1971, 72 O-Pee-Chee. They have the clean white border, really loud, bright colors. You got the team name, again, that we've talked about. This doesn't match the team color. So you have that at the top. You have the logo in the bottom right with their position, and you have their name. A lot of pink, a lot of yellow, a lot of light blue, but really cool looking cards. And then when you look at the back, we talked about the backs of cards a lot. And yeah, it kind of has a shade of green, black, very reminiscent to the days of old. And as Chris mentioned, the back on the Tops one was vertical. This one was horizontal, and they throw a bunch of stats in there, and they put a little, a little bit of tidbit of about the player. And we're showing on the screen right now for our podcast listeners the card from Tim Horton, and he played for Pittsburgh. He was a defenseman, obviously played for Toronto. This card's from Pittsburgh, played for Toronto, but his little blurb is Tim owns a chain of donut shops. And if you've ever been to Canada, there's a Tim Horton on every corner. And give me the Timbits and a double-double any day of the week. I will take it. So funny little thing back in 71, he owns, and now Tim Hortons are everywhere. So fun little tidbit there on the back of Tim Hortons card.
Yeah, like I said, tidbits before you said Timbits.
Timbits, yes. And as I like to say, Timbits made with little bits of Tim. But I found that funny because whenever I go to Canada, every time you wake up in the morning, you go to get your double-double and you get your 10 Timbits. And we had Timbits, or we had Tim Hortons here in Minnesota for a while, failed miserably, and they shut them all down. And nobody was more disappointed than me.
Yeah, I was actually just in New York about 2 weeks ago, upstate New York, and hit my Tim Hortons in Dunkirk, New York there.
Sure, and they do have them in some states still. That's right.
Yeah, but if you've never been in that neck of the woods and you know Starbucks, it's basically as many Starbucks as you see in the States. That's, like Matt said, they're everywhere in Canada, Tim Hortons. But great coffee, great donuts, and just kind of a fun place to stop in if you're up in that neck of the woods. But
and a pretty good hockey player, apparently.
Yeah, pretty good hockey player. Stayed in the league for a while. Looks like it was good for almost 500 points there at this point when the card was made. So
this was from Series 2. There were 2 series in this O-Pee-Chee set, and that was different from Tops. So Series 1 was like card 1 through 132, and then 133 to 264. Both series had notable rookies. You mentioned Dryden. He was in Series 1, but Series 2, as you kind of alluded to, had another rookie on the Montreal Canadiens who we all are knowing as Guy Lafleur. One interesting thing about this card is, as you'll notice, there's a space between the La and Fleur, which was an error. That's not how he spelled his name. It was all one word. So, congratulations, welcome to the league, superstar. Your name is spelled wrong.
Yeah, and if that was a 1990 Donruss card, it'd be selling for $15,000 on eBay right now.
And they didn't even, O-Pee-Chee didn't even take the time to correct it. There wasn't even a corrected version. This is like the one version. That's all you get. You get it. But what a classic looking card. And doesn't he look like he's an old grizzled veteran and not like a rookie? It's like
he kind of does. And that was kind of the cool thing with these cards and really this era of hockey is that they didn't wear helmets back then either. So
no, they did not.
When you're watching hockey, you could get a good look at everybody, and everybody knew what everyone's hair looked like, and pretty interesting stuff from back in the day. We talked about those packs though. 10 cents for a pack of cards back then. And
what a way to spend 10 cents! Wow.
Yeah,
if you go back, this Series 2 also had a couple of the the award winners and all-star cards, and they also had the 2 retirement cards. And one of them was Gordie Howe. The other one was Jean Bellevue, and then the other was Gordie Howe, which as you look at Gordie's career, he didn't retire. He still played like 6-7 more years of pro hockey after this, including a stint in the WHL or the WH. He's played in the WHA, the Western Hockey Association, which wasn't around. It came to light at that time when Gordie was ending his NHL career. But he did have a stint then about 6 years later, played for the Hartford Whalers. So he, congratulations, Mr. Hockey, you're retiring. Oh, you're going to go play 6 more years of professional hockey. That was just Gordie Howe. But this is one of the more sought after cards, as is the John Bellevue, that, kind of a send off to their superstars that had given the game so much life, if you will, and icons of the sport at that time.
Yeah, Gordie needed to get a few more Gordie Howe hat tricks in.
Yes, he did.
Before he retired. You don't know what that is. That is a goal, an assist, and a fight. So I think it's something that once you kind of tell youth hockey players what Gordie Howe hat trick is, they're like, yeah, I want to go get one.
I want one of those. We count a penalty for the kids who can't fight as the Gordie Howe hat trick. But those are really cool looking cards. Like I saw this card for the first time in doing the research. Really, really sharp looking card, and just a neat card, signed Gordon Howe, kind of the autograph there that he put on it. You kind of forget that his name is Gordon, it's always is, Mr. Hockey, Gordie Howe. And so just a neat card. And, we mentioned the rookies too. We showed the Guy Lafleur, and then the Dryden card. One more thing. If you're listening to us on the podcast, we're kind of flipping through pictures here. Guy Lafleur's back of his card, the little comic strip with the blurb about him is, Guy will be a superstar.
Yeah.
And people knew apparently that Guy Lafleur was going to be the next great hockey player of this era, and so the O-Pee-Chee folks were like, all right, let's just proclaim him, the next great superstar. And again, they did a pretty good job of pegging that one.
Yeah, he'd played in Quebec with his minor hockey, and he was a guy that was really well known. And there's kind of an interesting story to him ending up on the Canadiens, kind of almost reminiscent of the Herschel Walker trade in the NFL. But the GM for the Canadiens was known as Trader Sam. It was Sam Pollock, and he traded the 1970 first-round pick and a couple players to the California Seals, which was a brand-new team for their 71 first-round pick. And I think the thought behind it was he knew this guy was coming up and was hoping to kind of get one past the Seals GM, and seemed to have done a good job of it, and was in position that year to get the first number 1 pick in the draft. The Seals and the LA Kings were kind of going back and forth for who was the worst team in the league, and this was before the lottery. And Sam made a quick move, even with his team in the hunt to win the Cup again that year, sent a player over to the Kings for basically a used puck bag to kind of give them a little extra push to make sure they wouldn't be in last place, and thus locking up the number 1 pick of the draft.
What a gamesmanship. Isn't that that's just fantastic. I love that story. What a crafty move by Trader Sam.
Yeah, that and I think that's probably another one of those reasons why everybody says we got to have a lottery so we don't have teams kind of pack it in when they know they're not going to get to the playoffs. But I think that's another kind of mechanism to defend against something like that too, because it was, like you say, just an incredibly crafty move by that general manager to pick up Guy Lafleur.
Yeah.
Of course, the guy who was picked number 2 wasn't too bad either that year.
No, it was not. Going to the next one there, Ken Dryden. Beautiful card. Like, that was a card that, in doing research for this show, this was the card that you really wanted to pull if you were a Montreal fan too. Like, and the card is Dryden in his full uniform, action shot, which was rare at this time. We see a lot of staged photos. So this looks like an action shot of him, on the ice, making a save or staring down a potential goal scorer here. And this was the card that a lot of people were after in this set. And when you look at it, you see it, you kind of know why. And Ken Dryden was, he was a legendary goalie for the Canadiens. 6 Stanley Cups, 5-time Vezina winner, 1-time Stanley Cup Final MVP, Hall of Famer. Like, he was he was the guy
Yep.
in between the pipes during this era, and this was the card that kids wanted.
And he called the Miracle on Ice game with Al
He
Michaels.
did. Him and Al Michaels were were on the mic, so that's probably the what he's more known for now. But you
Right.
go look what he did and accomplished. It's quite. I mean, it's quite the career that he had. So definitely one of the stars of this set. Clearly being his rookie card.
Yeah, so this is the guy that was the number 2
Number
pick.
2.
Yeah. Ended up going in the Hall of Fame as well.
Marcel Dion. Yes, Red Wings draft pick. Spent only 4 years with the Red Wings. Wanted out. Didn't like the losing, and so went out to play most of his career with the Kings. And then finished up with the Rangers. But again, another Hall of Famer. Never won a cup, but 1,700 plus points. I mean, ridiculous numbers. And so, just when you look at Guy Lafleur and then Dion is the first 2 pick, those guys panned out, and they not only panned out, they were they were the icons of the sport for many years, and a lot of record holders at that time. Many of them have been surpassed by players of the 80s and 90s, but at that time, those guys were the class of the young guns, and there were some really big names in this set, like that maybe weren't as household names as the guys we're mentioning, but there were 38 Hall of Famers that had cards in this set. So a lot of guys went on to go have good long careers. Maybe not the rookies of those Hall of Famers, but they were just in this set. And when you talk about the other notable cards in this set, one of the interesting cards that people gravitate towards from this set is card number 111, and it was a checklist card. And the reason that this card is in high demand and really hard to find is back in that era, kids would take these checklists and mark off the cards that they had. And so when they were trading cards and packaging or packing up their cards to bring them places, they were trading to try and complete the sets. That's kind of how it worked back then, but checklists were actually used as checklists. So finding these cards in any type of good condition or not drawn on, for crying out loud, became extremely rare. And we'll talk about the PSA Pop Report on these and some of the prices on these cards, but extremely rare. And there was another one in Series 2, card number 264, which apparently wasn't as valuable. But yeah, so the checklist was one of the notable cards. And then, of course, Bobby Orr. Anytime you put Bobby Orr in a set on a card, it's going to be valuable and it's going to draw a lot of interest. And his card from this set, really cool. You see a young Bobby Orr with a smile and a nice head of hair on the young man at this point.
They won the cup that year, and again, like say, got that hair out so everybody could see the flow as they skated across the ice. And that checklist story, and that's funny because I remember doing that, and I wasn't collecting at that time, but I definitely remember, in the late 80s, striking those checklists off. So it definitely was a thing. Let's go back to values a little bit. I did look up some values on some of those rookie cards. The Ken Dryden card, and again, when we start talking about vintage cards, when we talk modern, we always talk about what PSA 10s are valued at.
Right.
Finding PSA 10s of this stuff is basically impossible. And actually, I had a hard time finding some higher graded cards of a lot of these guys.
Yeah, me too.
The Dryden is really, really hard to find a high grade slab of. I did find a PSA 5 that recently sold for $500. And again, here's another kind of interesting thing for reference. That PSA 5 sold for about $500. The same card in a top, so it basically looks the same. The back's different. It's a top, so it'd be an American card. Sells for $150.
Yeah,
about 3 times more value in the O-Pee-Chee. The Guy Lafleur, I was able to find a recent sale there, a PSA 7, sold for about 1,500 Canadian. So I think you're around $1,200 there.
Mm-hmm.
And then Marcel Dion, PSA 8, recently sold for $775. Lots of raw cards of this one going around.
Yes.
And you can get a pretty nice raw card for around $75 of that one.
Yeah, and that's what I noticed too. And you're right; it is. We'll get into the pop numbers, but I can tease you right now and tell you it's 1% gem rate, and there's some cards that have been graded hundreds of times with 0 10s. So I think with this set in the research, again, kids carried these around like badges of honor. I have a Ken Dryden. I have a Guy Lafleur. So these were not just cards that they opened and stashed. Kids wanted to show these off to their friends and their classmates and trade them but really they were proud. And when you talk about the price of a Topps versus O-Pee-Chee, hockey in Canada in the 70s was everything. And so, I'm not surprised that the O-Pee-Chee is harder to get, because I think, a lot more people had those cards, but those were the ones that I think a lot of people, probably more nostalgic for people than the Topps. But during that era, Hockey Night in Canada, I mean, that was all that really Canada had when it came to sports, and it meant everything. And so to have guys like Dryden and Lafleur in Montreal winning cups and all that stuff, I mean, that brought a lot of attention to this set, I think. And then for people who just loved hockey, and Bobby Orr, I mean, he had 3 cards in this set. This one is his base card, card number 100. And then there's this awesome card, which is the award for winning the Norris and the Hart. And so really, really great card. And then there's the All-Star card. So there were 3 Bobby Orr cards in this set, and all 3 are tremendously valuable, tremendously sought after. And, I think these, when we look at the pop reports, these are some of the more popular cards to get graded as well, because, again, Bobby Orr was hockey after really, Gordie Howe, and really was many to be considered the greatest hockey player of all time. I mean, we know Gretzky's right there, but Bobby Orr played defense a different way, and he was just a different hockey player. And the people who have a passion for watching him play and remember him playing, like, he's the card that you wanted and needed if you're a card collector of hockey cards. And so he had 3 of those cards in this set, and all of them are highly sought after.
Yeah, these kind of the special cards in the set are they almost, I mean, they remind me of modern cards, and the designs, I think, were ahead of their time.
I agree.
Super cool designs to them. But one thing that wasn't ahead of its time in this set is some of the doctoring they did in this set. Some of these cards.
Photoshop wasn't around, but man, that didn't stop them from trying to do some crazy stuff.
Yeah, so
this is worth looking at. If you're listening to us on the podcast, yes, this is something worth Googling, or go to our YouTube page. I'll let you try and describe this one, Chris.
Yeah, so, we talked earlier about trader Sam Pollock making all these moves. So a lot of these are guys that were traded from the Canadiens to these different teams, and Bobby Sheehan traded to the Seals, and they basically just took his face and put it on Gary Crotto's card and called it good. And his Bobby Sheehan's face, he looks like maybe he was hanging out in Florida, and Gary Crotto was definitely not hanging out in Florida. So you have this very tan, red-looking face on a neck that is very not tan.
It's so weird. I look at this. It's just, and the Gary Crotto card was in Series 1, and then Bobby Sheehan was in Series 2. So they're like, I mean, you wouldn't get these cards together, I don't think, but maybe you did. I don't know if Series 1 and 2 were mixed together, but yeah, white neck, really red-faced Bobby
Nice.
Sheehan. Just odd.
Just odd, but honestly, this is not the worst one.
Oh, good old Rogie. Poor Rogie Vachon. This is his rookie card, and this is how he's remembered. And he was a dang good goalie too. Like he got Wally pipped by Ken Dryden, and he was a really good goal. And this is the card that they gave him.
Yep.
This one is definitely worth Googling.
Yes. So you've got Ross Lonsberry, who probably looked incredible with no shirt on. You can see the hair sneaking up past the collar. I mean, this guy probably looked like a bear with no shirt on. And then you got Vachon there. And again, probably went to the same beach that Sheehan was at. He's got the same kind of red tone to his face. And Ross did not. He was he had the hair going. He did not have a tan. And then you got the Vachon face on there that again, not close. But we've talked in some of these shows before about card companies back then, because this was not big money. I think they kind of cut corners, and this was one of those spots where they cut corners.
Yeah, and Rogie, kudos to him for putting this rookie card behind him and having a really good career. He won 3 Stanley Cups and was a Hall of Famer. So he went on to have a great career. But you got a Guy Lafleur rookie card where his name is spelled incorrectly. You have a Rogie Vachon rookie card where you have his head superimposed on someone else's body. It's just. This is the reason. This is largely one of the reasons we picked this set was because the quirks and the oddities that came with it. And there's one other oddity that was pointed out. It was Phil Esposito.
Yeah, this is awesome.
He looks like he's in his hockey stance. He's got his Bruins jersey on. He's got but if you look closely, it looks like he's wearing like 70s checkered slacks. And so he clearly they pulled him from somewhere. Here, throw this jersey on. We're gonna snap a picture. He's also wearing someone else's gloves. So like he's wearing gloves that have number 17 on it, which those are Fred Stanfield's gloves from another picture. So like Espo never wore 17. And but they basically it was clear, like again, O-Pee-Chee didn't have the time, probably the resources to all right, we're gonna do this a different time when Phil you're ready. No, it was like, okay, we're here, we got the camera set up, you're here, Mr. Esposito. Here, throw this Bruins jersey on, grab Fred's gloves and stick, and we'll snap a picture. But just odd. Again, just another quirky oddity of the 1970s and the sports cards that we love from that era.
Yeah, they were probably saying something to him like, "Don't worry, we'll shoot you from the waist up." And maybe this is one of those deals too where they, the photographer was just kind of blowing through a little film, and whoever was in the edit room just grabbed it and wasn't paying attention, and there you go. You've got Phil's slacks, and maybe he just finished a day on the boat or something. And
maybe. And Phil, Phil's a big deal. Like he was a Hall of Fame. So maybe he doesn't have time for this crap.
Right.
Maybe he's one of those guys that I don't know what his personality is, but maybe he's like, I don't have time for this crap. I want to be anywhere but here. And some guys just want to get talked into to do this, and maybe he was one of those guys. But regardless, it makes for a good story that he's wearing 1970s checkered slacks. I think there were slacks back then, not pants.
Yeah, they were definitely slacks.
Definitely slacks, and I could see they had like a gray and black kind of check. I bet you he was wearing like black loafers with no socks.
And a smoking jacket.
Yeah, he had some sort of smoking, big lapels. That's kind of what that era was. But just some quirky cards. But really fun to look at these cards from afar. Meaning, you and I never collected this year because we weren't born, and not big hockey collectors. But I really enjoyed looking at these. And like you said, Chris, the value on some of these cards are pretty ridiculous. I mean, they're high. And when you start looking at the pop report, which I'm going to get into a little bit now, but you can buy these cards raw for, they're reasonably priced cards, especially kind of the common guys, or even some of the guys who are Hall of Famers. But the higher end guys, you're going to pay a little bit, because I think there's a lot of nostalgia attached to this set for people who were really into hockey at that time, and so I think you're going to be bidding against some pretty aggressive people, that have the same level of interest in this set as maybe you, but. I think that's one of the things that you see with the set, Chris, is the people who like this set really, really like this set. And my guess is there's a lot of people out there that have this full set either graded, and that's just looking at the PSA reports. There's a lot of these cards, kind of those middle tier guys. There's over 100 cards of these graded. So I think a lot of people maybe went at this from a kind of set registry type of thing, and because I was looking at the numbers, and usually there's cards where it's like there's 2 or 3. There are a lot of guys in the hundreds that I look at and I go, who's that guy? And I never heard of him, not a Hall of Famer. So I think there are a lot of people that got these cards graded hoping for higher grades, or for a set registry.
Yeah, set registry has been a big deal, and I think you see that a lot in these vintage era sets, because people still do, and it's crazy. They find boxes of this stuff in closets, and it's just in immaculate condition. And when you find that stuff, you get it graded. I mean, I've been digging through one of my local card shops. They have a kind of a vintage bargain bin where it's just kind of stuff, and a lot of it is commons. But every once in a while, they'll buy a high grade collection from somebody, and you can go in there and find these vintage commons in this bin. And they're common players, but they're just in immaculate condition, and you can pick them up for 50 cents or $1. And I've actually kind of been buying that stuff and reselling it to people, because there definitely are people out there that are looking for high grade cards of some of these vintage sets, because you can't find it. So when you do find that stuff, if you're out and about and that card shows, I think it's definitely worth picking up, because there are people that are out there and filling these sets and trying to put these things together for the set registries, and
for sure,
they're good buys, and there's stuff that you're not going to get rich selling cards that you buy for $1 for $5, but it's a fun little transaction, and if you can keep doing that over and over again, you definitely can make a little fun money and help build your personal collection.
Yeah, and I think that's something that you've taught me about too. Is let's find those cards that have some some value in the highest of the grades, or the higher grades. And when you talk about cards being immaculate from the set, that was a very hard set to find these top grades in. And I mentioned it earlier, 1% gem rate. So there's been 38,000 cards graded from this set, which is quite a bit. And when you look at the numbers, only 572 are 10s. So it's really hard to find these cards. And I think, it's partially due to, how much they were handled. I think this was during an era where kids, again, were showing these cards off. They were putting a rubber band around them. They were putting them in paper bags and just carrying them around, showing people, I've got Ken Dryden, I've got Guy Lafleur, Marcel Dion, whoever the case may be. And when you go down the numbers, even the 9s, there's only 5,000 9s of this. So, a lot of people are looking at the 9s being kind of that ceiling for these cards. 15,000s are in the 8s. So when you look at the most common grade for these cards, it's 8, and the numbers, there's more 7s than 9s. There's over almost 8,000 7s, and even 6s. There's 5,000 6s. So 6s, there's almost as many 6s as there are 9s. So you kind of see the sweet spot for many of these graded cards for this set was anywhere between 5 and 8. And so anything above that, you're really sitting pretty. And Chris, you mentioned some of the things that you found on eBay through the sales. I had a hard time finding it. You know, PSA 6s and 7s are selling for $1,500, $1,600. So it's really, really hard to find anything above 8s, 7s on eBay. So really an interesting study when you look at the pop report and realize 38,000 of these cards have been graded, but so few of them get above an 8. And so then when you look at kind of the breakdown, Guy Lafleur was the number 1 graded card. His card has been graded almost 1,200 times. He has 6 10s. That's it. And so he only has 52 9s. So there you go. You have 58 cards that are either 9 or 10. And then 235 are 8s, which is the most common. But all the way down to 5s, there's 192 5s. The Ken Dryden cards, number 2, and then the Marcel Dion. So the 3 rookies are the top graded cards from this set, most graded, most sought after, and then it's followed by the Bobby Orr. Three of the Bobby Orr cards are 4, 6, and 7. That Gordie Howe retirement card is number 5 is the most graded, and then Checklist number 111, Chris, is the 8th most graded card, and out of the 226 that have been sent into PSA, a whopping 0 have received a PSA 10 grade. And so now you see why the 9s are so valuable, because there's only 4 of those. And when you look at the 8s, there's only 53 of those. So back to that interesting story about checklists being used as a literal checklist.
I don't know why kids would do that.
Because we're kids. But I remember doing the same thing. You mentioned that. I remember doing that with the 87. I remember doing that with 87, 86. I remember drawing on cards.
Yeah.
It was just something you did with, your spare time. Sometime you grab a marker and you draw a mustache on Roger Clemens, and it's just, and then you look a couple years later and you go, what the hell was I thinking? That's a Roger Clemens rookie. But, you're a 10-year-old, 10-year-old stupid kid.
Right. I remember playing baseball with them. I'd put the cards down on a carpet in the positions that they would be in and pretending like the guy's hitting, and then the people have to move to field it. I mean, I remember doing that and basically using them as action figures. So that was something that we all did. But it's just funny because, checklists, no one gets excited about that. Nobody has this, fuzzy feeling where they saw the checklist hit its first home run. But, like you said, those people that are putting sets together,
yes,
they are looking for those cards, and they are hard to find that haven't been messed with from that era of cards, just because people used them. And, we didn't. The other thing is, in those times, you couldn't just go online and go, I wonder who card number 115 is. Like,
nope.
There was only one way to know who card 115 was, and that was having a checklist. And really at that time, even card books on cards were difficult to find. They did have them, but they were not common like when you and I were collecting. We had a Beckett for every sport, and you could look these things up. But at that time, that was not the case.
No, you needed that checklist. That's absolutely right. I'm glad you brought that up, because it was essential to see who was in the set, who am I missing, how many cards are in this set. Like those are all things we take for granted now, but back then that was your lifeline to figure out who was in which set and what card it was and which ones you didn't have and who'd you have to trade for. And those were the things that you had to you kind of had to rely on to figure out. And so I think it's an interesting look back at an era where I think a lot of people were looking at these cards, these hockey cards, especially in Canada, as must-haves. And if they wanted to get the guys from their team, and we've talked about this too, Chris, before, rabid fans collecting guys who were their guys on their teams. There was nothing bigger than hockey in the set. Like, there was a lot of passion there, and so. If you had a passionate fan base, especially in Canada with O-Pee-Chee, like you have Toronto, you have the Montreal Canadiens, you have some really strong following. So, I think that's when you look at some of those, a lot of people attacked these cards like their life depended on it, and they wanted these cards. And I think for a lot of people who are either still buying these or grading them, it's for nostalgia purposes. And I think that's why you see some of these cards at the prices they are. And the fact of the matter is there just aren't that many out there, at least in graded form. But you can still get raw cards. I saw a bunch of Guy Lafleur and Ken Dryden raw cards out there. Hey, they weren't in great shape, but if you want to spend $30, you probably get a PSA 2, 3, maybe even a 4, and that's that might be something that's good enough for you if you're trying to put together a set. But my guess is if you're putting a set together or you already have, those are probably guys you start with.
Yeah, and I think to your point, the Canadiens' passion for this card, it hasn't died down, because when you start trying to find these cards, you definitely can find the Topps versions. They're far more common than the O-Pee-Chee version. Yes. And I think there were definitely fewer printed, but I just think that people are holding these things because you just, it was very difficult to find values in some of them. Right now, there's only one pack that's on eBay. There hasn't been any sold recently. That one pack right now is up for sale for 2,500 Canadian, so it's about $2,000 US, and that's it. So I think when people have this stuff in Canada, they're not really wanting to let it go.
So. No, they're not, and they want it. They want to keep it, and they, for nostalgic purposes, I don't blame them.
Yeah, great stuff. I think we can put this to bed. Do you have anything else on this set?
I do not. I am ready to put this one to bed.
All right, let's get into a little bit of news. I sent a text over to you a couple hours ago. PSA, we've been talking a lot about PSA and all the things happening there and opening up economy for $30. And there was a minimum on it. And news tonight is no longer a minimum on it. So you can, if you want to send one card in for $30, you're more than welcome to do that. What do you think about that?
I think the floodgates did not open as they expected. I think what PSA is realizing, they are they're going to be in some trouble when it comes to getting as many submissions as they thought. And you and I have talked about this many times. People have bigger issues when it comes to money than they did before. And the idea of spending money on getting a card graded right now in today's economy is probably secondary. And so will people send in, a couple here for $30 here, $30 there? I think so. I think what PSA saw originally was probably a lull in the number of people submitting cards, just because it was that 20 card minimum. Like you had to pay a minimum of $600. We talked about that on the show. That's a lot of money for people right now. So switching it to a single card submission option, I think you'll start to see cards trickle in at a lower rate. But I think PSA overestimated the interest and how many people wanted to submit. And I think the reality hit them right between the eyes that people don't want to spend that much money. Still, that's still a lot of money, and the returns that you're getting nowadays, I don't think it's worth it for enough people. And I think when you and I talked about this, Chris, at the beginning when it was announced, that was our major sticking point. Was I don't want to spend $600 right now to get my cards graded. So I think it was a no-brainer, and I think it will help, but I still don't think the floodgates are opening for PSA.
Yeah, they're opening, but nothing's coming through. But what I think it does, and it'll be interesting to see how this plays out over the next really probably few weeks, is as we've talked, and I've been laughed at a few times on YouTube, the reality is they are winding down the backlog. And they're still doing almost 1 million cards a month. They don't have that many cards left. I mean, they've got a month or two supply left, and that's it. And Here's what I'm going to say is the reality is they are still grading cards that were sent in for $50 and $30 over the last few months. But the majority of the cards that they are grading right now are $12 and $15 and $20 submissions.
Yes.
And they've been able to be profitable doing that over the last, 12 months and have grown their infrastructure and have grown their employee base, basically grading cards for $10 and $12 a piece. I know they don't want to be overwhelmed, but they know their capacity right now is 1 million cards a month. Maybe it's time to start dropping that price down, and maybe it doesn't get all the way down to $10, but maybe it's $15, maybe it's $18, whatever it happens to be. The reality is they know they can do 1 million cards a month, and they need to get 1 million subs a month to be able to keep those people working at the level that they've been working at. They've been profitable doing that. So, hey, PSA, send me an email and take my cards for $12 a piece, and we'll probably start sending some subs again.
I agree 100%. I think they're ready. Like I said, I don't think the floodgates opened as much as they had thought. I think they probably, I think a lot of people were talking. I think they probably heard a lot of people talking. $25, $30 is probably the price. I think that was previous to what we're seeing now with inflation. Maybe 6 months ago, maybe 8 months ago, $25, $30 would have been something that triggered a bigger movement. But we're at a different spot right now, totally different spot. The cards that are coming in to PSA and then coming out and then being sold on the secondary market, those prices have gone down. So you're not flipping these cards for nearly as much, and the buyers have dried up for many cards as well.
Mm-hmm.
So you're looking at all of these compounding and coming to one conclusion is PSA is still overpriced. Mm-hmm. It's just by the time it made this move, it just moved at the wrong time. So I think you're absolutely right. It's time for PSA to start to reevaluate. And if we follow their trends of how they've done this before, they'll lower the price again, but put a maximum or a minimum submission again on that. So you're saying $12, $15, maybe they put that down to, but you have to submit 50 cards, or you have to, maybe they up that a little bit, or you have to submit 25. There's a number that they feel like they have to hit, right, for each order. And for this order, it was $600 to begin with, and that was too high. So if they're going to continue to, I think, tweak that to see how do we maximize our minimum orders. And I think that's going to be the next kind of discussion and what that number is.
And I actually think they may go the other way. It depends on how fast they drop the price. If they go to 25 and then 20 and then 15, then maybe that would be what they would do. But if they do something drastic and go like 15, they may cap that number, because what they don't want to do is be in a position where they're taking in more than 1 million cards. They may cap that and just see what happens and then pull the cap off if they're still not getting the numbers that they need. But they don't.
So you're saying they put a maximum, not a minimum.
If they went to something like 12 or $15, is what they don't want to do is take in 2 million cards in a month. I think they want to be at that. If they could be bringing in 900 to 900,000 to 1 million cards a month, whatever that price is, I think that's kind of their happy spot. So
I get that.
That's it's just like the way that the casino would move the line up and down. They're just trying to find a number where they get equal action on both sides. I think PSA is probably going to be trying to find a number where they can bring in that 900,000 cards a month. That's a spot where they can fill up their building and keep everyone they have working for them working.
Sure.
So whatever that number is, and I mean, I don't know, maybe we'll see quarterly specials soon. It just kind of depends on how things shake out. And again, I think we had talked the last time we talked about this, about them dipping their toe in the water. Well, they've done that, and the water has been, I guess I'd say nice. It's a point where they probably need to jump in the pool, but that's not probably the spot they'd like to be. I'm sure they'd love to do $30 subs all day long, but the market is not going to bring that right now.
No, and I think we've talked about all the varieties, and I think capping. If you were to drop the price in half, $15, that would be a massive shift. That would be positive PR. I think a lot of people would send cards, and if you were given 25 submissions for $15 each month, I think a lot of people would take advantage of that. And so that cap number is definitely in play. And then there could be an allocation. There could be quarterly specials, like you said. I mean, there's some they need to figure out something. But I get what you're saying about putting a cap on the number of cards coming in, because they do know what they can. They do know what they can accept and get through in a timely manner. So it's just a matter of them finding that sweet spot. And clearly, the 20 card minimum was not the sweet spot for $30 a card. That was a whiff on their part. They miscalculated the interest in the number of people sending their cards in at that price, that many cards, and they quickly changed course, to their credit. I think that's one of the things we're seeing with the new PSA is they will adapt based on what's happening in the market. Whereas I think the old PSA was probably they weren't prepared for the fluctuations. And so, I expect whenever they make news, more news tends to follow. And so I think we'll probably be hearing something from them, probably within the month.
Yeah, PSA may end up being like, lobster on the menu. It's going to be market price. And maybe that's kind of what they do for a while. Who knows what's going to end up happening with that. But like I said, I believe they want to keep their facility full. They want to keep their workers working. And that the number appears to be about 900,000 cards a month is about what they can do. So we'll see.
You got to keep that cash flow going, right? And they're really pushing hard for people to join the Collectors Club. Like that's every PR, every social media post when they're talking about kind of value, the value's open, join our club. Like they're really pushing that. They want to get membership. They want to get those people locked in for $100 for the year, and then they can figure out how many people are joining, how many people are going to have access to this. And but the interesting thing about it too, Chris, is and I've thought about this personally. When my membership expires here, and it's coming up. I mean, it's within the next couple months. Do I pay the $100 to do this, or I can go to my local card shop and get a card graded for $30, and I don't have to pay the $99 fee and to be a club member. And so I'm not turning out cards, or I'm not getting cards graded enough to be a club member. And so you're going to have to incentivize me a little bit more to become a club member. And so I think that's the other thing that PSA is grappling with right now.
Yeah, maybe that's, and this is something that we talked about. We've talked about during this conversation is those quarterly specials were magic.
They did, yeah.
That's absolutely a Collectors Club exclusive, and maybe that's what comes back. Is like we've discussed many times in the show, that was kind of one of the more fun times that we had doing all this was kind of trying to strategize around those specials. So
I would love to, I would love to see those back with a cap, right? Like we were sending just obscene amounts. I mean, some of our orders were 150 cards, or at least mine were, but they were $8 of grade, to get them graded. It was like, you can't buy a top loader for, at the time, or a one touch, $2-3. Here I'm getting a slab for $8. Right. And I'm getting graded, which might return even more value to the card, which turned out to be the case. And so, that was one of the more, exciting times in the hobby, was when you got those quarterly specials. And you had a bunch of cards that fit that quarterly special. That was even better.
And sometimes you had to go digging.
You did, for sure.
Dig through some boxes and find the stuff you're looking for to fill the order. So
yeah,
it was good times. Maybe you had to make a few purchases at the show or online.
Yeah,
but it was enjoyable, and hopefully it's just an interesting time, because over the last few years you've seen the people that have collected over the last 25 years, when a lot of people left the hobby, and those people were really upset about the surging prices and all the changes that have happened over the last few years, and maybe we're drifting back to that time period. So that could be something too.
Yeah.
One other note here before we call it a night. I was actually watching one of my favorite YouTubers, who's 1 Million Cubs Project, and he's a big Bowman baseball guy, and he said this on a show, and it actually just came to my mind, so I haven't done any research on it, but he said that the 2022 Bowman cards, which have been out in stores and available for purchase, more than any Bowman set that I've seen over the last few years.
Yes.
He claims that set is not any more printed than the 2021 Bowman set.
Really?
That is was on his show. So if that's true, then demand for that Bowman set has fallen through the floor, because you can still find it. I haven't gone to a retail store for the last probably 10 days, but before that, I was regularly seeing them. They were still available on the Target.com website. So that's an interesting.
Mega boxes too.
Yeah, mega boxes as well.
Yeah. Not just
mega
boxes.
boxes were $45, which is a little bit higher than they've been in the past. So maybe that's been something that scared the normal Bowman people away. Because you used to be able to get those mega boxes for about $30. Mega box actually has fewer cards in it than a blaster box. You get more parallels, but just fewer cards. So those have been kind of sitting. So interesting note. And in this year where we're seeing print runs go crazy, if you're looking for boxes to hold, that Bowman set does have some pretty good rookie talent in it and prospect talent. So if you see that stuff, at least according to that YouTuber, they're not overprinted, I guess, any more than last year's cards were.
Yeah, and they're available. That's for sure. Those Bowman blasters, they're readily available. Whether it's baseball, whether it's the Bowman U football, even Bowman U basketball. All of them are there. And so, but yeah, the baseball. Interesting to hear that thrown out there. Yeah.
So, well, good stuff as always, Matt. Enjoyed it. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope everybody listening and watching enjoyed it. If you check out the show on your podcast player, please leave us a review, especially if you like our show. If you don't like it, then don't leave us a review. But if you like the show, we would love a 5-star review. That would be awesome. And if you're on YouTube, go ahead and click the thumbs up and subscribe too. We're trying to put more and more stuff out. And again, we've been traveling. The both of us have been traveling quite a bit over the last 2 or 3 weeks, but that's kind of starting to wind down. So hopefully we'll get back to get pumping out a bunch of stuff for everybody. So.
Good chatting, Chris. Hope everybody enjoyed this one. We'll talk to you guys next time.